Good evening, everybody. Meteorologist Blake Mathews here. Here is your tropical update on Invest 91L and, of course, Tropical Storm Gonzalo. Now, new information coming in as we speak. That is, it looks like this is now going to be potential tropical cyclone number 8. We should have the very first advisory on this particular system in the Gulf of Mexico at 10 o'clock tonight. At that time, we should have a cone and the latest information from the Hurricane Center. Again, I'm just hearing this in some of the back channels that we may indeed have a potential tropical cyclone. And basically all that means is the National Hurricane Center says it's not a tropical cyclone as of yet, but it is a possibility of becoming one. And at that time, they do go ahead and issue a cone and watches and warnings. So again, remains to be seen. That's what I'm hearing in the back channels right now, and we'll wait for confirmation on that from the Hurricane Center here over the next hour or so. But here's the very latest information that I have. Winds 30 miles an hour, moving to the west-northwest at 6. That pressure now down to 1,009 millibars. If you watched at 5 and 6 o'clock, that pressure was at 1,011. So the pressure has dropped a little bit, and we watch the barometric pressure because the lower that pressure goes, the stronger the storm is. Here's a look at the satellite. Seeing a little bit more of an outflow here coming out of the system, so maybe a little better organized, but still not much in the way of thunderstorms with this particular system. It is still very broad here in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. But we do think it's going to head on off to the west and should make it into Texas as we get into Friday and Saturday. And what that means for our forecast, obviously, is a lot of heavy rain headed our direction as well. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because we are still relatively dry. I know my yard, speaking for myself, is very dry, and I know a lot of yours are as well. So some beneficial rain headed our way. Hopefully we don't get too much. 1, 2, 3, 4 inches of rain looks to be a pretty likely possibility as we head into the upcoming weekend. And of course, we may see some gusty winds right along the immediate coast here from the upper Texas coast down through the central coast, exactly depending on where this particular system makes landfall. So again, we're going to watch this system very carefully, even if it becomes Tropical Storm Hannah. Not a guarantee, looking likely, but even if it does become Hannah, the results here in the Houston area and in Galveston are going to be the exact same, and that is the possibility of some heavy rain and some gusty winds. So taking a look here at the tropical development chances, 80%. Again, what I'm hearing in the back channels is that this may have been classified as a potential tropical cyclone, and we'll see that coming up tonight at 10, if indeed that is the case. And it looks like they've turned the lights out on our on our update here, but hopefully they get those turned back on here in just a second. There we go. And he said, "Let there be light." And he saw that it was good. All right, here's a look at the tropical wave once again. 30-mile-an-hour winds, all the spaghetti models, bringing it right into the Texas coast between Galveston and just north of Brownsville there. So from, say, Nueces County all the way up into, say, Chambers County, that's where we could be seeing a landfall here of a weak tropical storm as we get into Friday and Saturday. Of something else that has my attention, Tropical Storm Gonzalo, soon to be Hurricane Gonzalo. We'll get an update from the Hurricane Center on this coming up here at 10 o'clock as well. Right now the wind's still holding at 50 miles an hour, moving to the west at 14, that pressure holding at 1,000 millibars. You can see how much better organized this particular system is versus what's in the Gulf of Mexico. This one, again, likely to become the first hurricane of the 2020 season as it pushes towards the southern portions of the Leeward Islands, maybe south of Barbados, and then eventually into the Caribbean. Now, a lot of models want to dissipate the system as it gets into the Caribbean, but some models actually strengthen it, including the European, and bringing a pretty healthy hurricane into the Caribbean as we get into the middle of next week. Where it goes from there remains to be seen. Some models take it into the Gulf of Mexico. So here's a broader look. We've got the Gonzalo out here in the MDR, what we call the main development region. There is Invest 91L, and you can see they're pretty far apart from each other, but it just goes to show you that as we push towards August, things are getting very busy very quickly. So here's a look at the cone from the Hurricane Center. Again, this will be updated coming up tonight at 10. Looking at a Category 1 hurricane pushing here just to the east of the islands into the southern islands with 70, 75 mile an hour. So borderline hurricane into the southern Leeward Islands and then into the Caribbean. And look what happens. We go from a 60 mile an hour tropical storm down to a 45 mile an hour tropical storm. Again, a lot of harsh conditions here across the Caribbean with strong wind shear in the upper levels. That will help tear apart any system that tries to work its way through there. But if it survives the boneyard here, Then things become more favorable as they get into the West Caribbean and into the Gulf of Mexico for development. The reason why everything is pushing off to the west is a big ridge of high pressure over the east coast, and the wind flow around high pressure is clockwise, so everything kind of gets circulated around like this, and anything on the southern periphery of a high pressure kind of gets pushed off to the west, and that's exactly the reason why we're seeing Invest 91L move in our general direction. Now, again, we're looking for a lot of rain, not just on Friday, but heading into Saturday and Sunday as well. Part of the reason, there's your system right there, that big ball of moisture, and that is headed right in our general direction. But look at this. Look at the purple, the tongue of moisture stretching all the way back down into the western Caribbean, and that's going to continue to funnel right on in to the northwest Gulf of Mexico. So again, we're going to have very high rain chances Friday, Saturday, into Sunday, even into Monday as well, before things kind of get back to a regular, typical summertime pattern here across the Houston area. So here's your forecast. This takes us into Thursday. The green lines are isobars per the European model. And you'll notice that that storm begins to kind of push right into the Corpus Christi area, but you'll notice the big rain shield here across the upper Texas coast. Remember, the dirty side of the storm is from the center of circulation and off to the right. So we are certainly going to be on that side. That's where most of the rain is going to be. And it looks like we could pick up several inches and maybe a little bit more as we get down towards Nueces and Refugio, Aransas and Calhoun counties out there along the central Texas coast. So if you have plans down in that general direction as we get into the weekend, just a heads up, it's going to be a washout and likely going to be pretty wet here as well. So this takes us through Sunday at 11 o'clock. We're looking from 1 to maybe up to 3, 4, maybe even more than that once you get down towards central Texas. So timing is going to be really late Thursday all the way into Saturday, and I could probably put Sunday on here as well. Impact is going to be some rough waves, gusty winds, and some torrential rains. We're talking 1 to 4 inches of rain in much higher totals as we get towards the central Texas coast as well. So just keep that in mind. Keep that even if this were to become a tropical storm, Tropical Storm Hannah, the impacts here locally are going to be the same, and that is we're talking about a lot of rain, some gusty winds at the beaches, not much further past that, and then also looking at maybe a little bit of erosion. And that's going to be about it. This is not going to be a wind event. This is not a hurricane. I've seen some questions come in. Blake, is this going to be a hurricane? Could it turn into a hurricane? And I think the chances of that happening are extremely low. So I don't think we have to worry about a hurricane, but I do think that we have to worry about a lot of heavy rain headed our direction as we get into the weekend. Thankfully, the bayous are empty. The ground is dry. We should be able to absorb quite a bit of rain before we have to worry about any flooding problems. Of course, having grown up on the Gulf Coast in the Houston area, let's see, I've lived here almost 30 years, and I can tell you I've seen my fair share of these, and every single one of them have a surprise. So never ever turn your back on these particular systems, because some areas could easily pick up, you know, an isolated 10, 12, 13 inches of rain. I've seen it happen many, many times, and that of course could cause some localized flooding issues. But for the vast majority of us, I think we're looking at 1 to 4 inches of rain with some isolated amounts higher than that. So once again, if you're just joining us, we're watching, waiting on word from the National Hurricane Center regarding the Invest 91L in the East Gulf of Mexico possibly have been upgraded now to a potential tropical cyclone. And the reason why that's important is we should get our first cone coming up tonight at 10, and we should also get our first watches and warnings. Again, just a possibility. That's what I'm hearing. Nothing confirmed from the Hurricane Center at this time, but we'll continue to keep you updated on that. And of course, we're also going to continue to watch Gonzalo, soon to be Hurricane Gonzalo, out there to the east of the Leeward Islands. We're watching that because some of the models also bring this towards the Gulf of Mexico in about 10 days. We'll have more on the weather coming up tonight at 10. In the meantime, hope you have a great dinner and a great evening. We'll see you on the air at 10 o'clock.